It's a couple of days since I did this video, and it's really just about the state having taken the floor up and some further surprises in the kitchen wall to do with live and legacy piping. Let's go back and just play. Now, on the left, in the lower corner by the door, the cement that this pipe is embedded in is rock hard, and it's almost concrete. There is a pipe here that goes up into the wall here and off to the right, and it is very badly corroded. And I had noticed just here a pinhole leak when I was trying to take up this cement. So I stopped doing that, and the leak isn't there. So it indicates to me that there is probably a fracture, a minute fracture in the pipe. Anyway, having a look at that, it's almost certainly a legacy pipe given the corrosion. There's the edge of the tiling in the existing doorway into the hallway. Now this legacy pipe, as I said, I think that's where that hairline fracture was. It's really corroded. It's been buried for God knows how many decades. And it comes up across to, not this one, this is actually the bidet outlet, which is a cold water feed. You can see, whilst the elbows here are brass, they put a brass to copper fitting here, which I've now capped off, soldered, and the pipe here is clearly iron, galvanized steel or cast iron. I hope it's steel rather than cast iron, and this one doesn't look too badly corroded except around the joints, and it is that joint that caused me a lot of problem with the other hot water feed into the bathroom. I'll just continue that. You can see there that I've just soldered a cap onto it. So continuing that, on the right, well now in the centre, the pipe underneath it is the badly corroded pipe that goes to the corner of the floor. This fed the washing machine, which for some reason was on hot, and I've solder capped this. I've cut off the line and solder capped it there. Now these pipes continue to the right, right to the edge of the kitchen wall, which is in this corner out there. This then is the cold water line that fed the bidet, which is capped, but the T-joint that was here was in an awful state, and I managed to split the copper pipe just underneath the brass the brass elbow rather. So it just wasn't possible to unscrew the copper tube underneath it. It just got reamed, completely smashed, and I had real problems, and in the end I wasn't going to call a plumber. I thought about it, but they would charge €100 just to come out and spend half an hour doing as little as possible. In the end I went to Marbella and bought the biggest pipe wrench I could find and laid it across the elbow, the brass elbow that came down here, after cutting the copper pipe around there, and I eventually managed to undo that union. Cleaned it out. I've used an awful lot of Loctite 55 here and a brass end cap, and that is now holding. So this is the cold pipe that disappears into the kitchen. I can't tell that. That's probably an elbow going into the kitchen wall there. So let me just see if there's a better frame focus on that one. Probably not. But the corrosion for some reason is from about there, and here it's reasonably clear, and that's what made me think that it was galvanized pipe. Now off this one we have another brass elbow coming down to copper, 15mm copper. All the galvanized steel or the iron pipes are 22mm 3/4 inch. To the right of that you can see the channel where the hot water line for the bathroom came down. It was the only outlet down there, and here you can see where the cold has been split. That's off into the kitchen somewhere, and this was the bathroom feed, which again I just cut the copper pipe there and put a cap on it so that it would be within the wall space rather than sticking out under the floor. So that horror story of ancient plumbing has now been dealt with. Here I've trimmed the floor to this level. The suggestion of Fiona, which I'll go with, is that the door jamb here, I'm going to take that out with the door, and I'm just going to put an MDF board up here, which on the reverse side, instead of this metal thing here, what we can do is we can put some shelves up there, so the whole lot can just be painted and you'll have some, as it were, built-in shelves. So the bathroom floor will terminate at about this level here, and I'm leaving enough room there for about 5mm of normal screed underneath the new concrete base, which should come up to just about the level there of that mortar. Now remember, in this space at this end of the bathroom there will be wall-to-wall cupboards for the utilities, the washing machine, the hot water tank and so on. There's a little bit of cement tile adhesive left up here in the corner. I knocked a little bit more of that out, but I'm tired of the surprises that you get in these walls, so I've left it about 2 centimeters proud. I don't believe that it will interfere with placing the metal profiling down, so I'm just going to leave it as is for the time being. If it does interfere with the metal profiling, I'm going to have to peck away some more at it. Otherwise, all of the tile adhesive has been removed off the kitchen wall, and I've also removed all of the old tile adhesive, exposing the engineering brick that makes up the not retaining partition wall into the hallway, which has been there for quite some time. You can see, I mean, there's no regularity in the mortaring. Bricks aren't ordinarily offset. The whole thing is really a pretty piss poor job. But going up, all of this needs to be cleared. That again is roughly about probably where I'll put the edge of the pocket door. I cleared all of the tile adhesive all the way up to the ceiling. Again, that's where I'll be putting the lintel more or less, just to determine what the nature of that join was. And that join, like all of the others, is just a crappily installed bunch of mortar. There's no sense of any compression loading from the ceiling, but nonetheless, for the sake of it, I'm going to install a lintel. That lintel will be 2x4s, 45 by 19mm pieces of autoclave pine, which I will glue together so that they're placed on their edge, which would be better for any compression. And because it's not retaining, I'm not going to use cement to mortar it in as well. I'm just going to rely on PU foam until I get the door jambs in to support it from the new floor level. PU foam has apparently a compression strength of 40 kilopascals, and concrete is anything between 20 and 60. So it should be fine, as this is just a partition wall. It's really just to establish the gap for the new door. This line here, what's left of it, that's about more or less where I'll come down for the door opening. Again, as a pocket door, which will probably actually be a 600mm door, the width of the door opening will have to be 1300mm, because of course the door has to have a pocket to slide into. And that also means on this side that the pocket door mechanism will actually be offset from this wall, because it's going to be set to be flush to the new metal profiling in the hallway, which will be drywalled. So moving along, we've got the original tile adhesive block there and a whole bunch of crap cement for something or other. There's not really anything else that needs to do with this wall. Everything's down here too. There's a full course of bricks down to this course. This is really coarse concrete, coarse aggregate concrete on the floor. It actually almost reminded me of what you'd find on a driveway, nearly asphalt. So that there's a full course of bricks in depth that I have to play with. So much for going down 17 centimetres. It'll be 12, but there are high points in the floor which probably limit me to 9 centimetres. Now that was from the bathroom extension. You can see down here the wall, the partition wall foundation ends there. This again is sand with only about maybe 3 centimetres of tile mortar and a really thin layer of cement. Probably not even 3 centimetres in total. I'm going to leave that alone. This is where the new bathtub is going to go. I will rely somewhat on a screed base over that and see how far up the concrete slab goes. But there will be a 5mm screed level across the top of that for the area that's not being heated. That is underneath the bathtub and the cupboards at the other end of the bathroom. I'm going to undercut the sand like by the door. I'm not going to use an expansion or foam expansion against sand. It's pointless. But I will use a vapor barrier because I don't want the sand to suck the moisture out of the concrete. So back again here, we're on the one brick under. One brick under, a little bit more than one brick under the finished floor depth that runs nicely along there. So this is the wall against the living room. I don't think anything else needs to be done to that. It's all going to be enclosed by metal profiling and dry warning anyway. Now, however, underneath that lot we have the soil stack. The soil stack will doubtless be a bit of a nightmare. However, it's too high there and the angle is wrong for me to take that out. The recommended 280mm, I can't remember, maybe 240. An alternative is 180 to have the stack embedded in the floor. So rather than that, what I've decided is, because I've cut out a channel around it there, is that I intend to convert that into a vertical soil stack by putting a 90 and 87 degree bend here and running the stack up there, and then putting a manifold in around here so I can have waste from the right, the bath and the sink coming in, and waste from the left from the kitchen, the washing machine and so forth coming in there. And then above that, 180 centimetres above the finished floor, not centimetres, 180mm above the finished floor depth will be the centre of a horizontal output pipe that the toilet can slide onto. In order to try and accommodate that, because this is going to take a lot of fudging, and I'm certainly going to have to I'm certainly going to have to put some level of finished floor in before I can actually work out precisely how far back that 90-degree elbow has to go. But here there's a depth that I've chiseled out there, which we'll see comes to about 6 centimeters. Now that's a 110mm diameter soil pipe, so that depth is going to be the radius of the soil pipe, and that should give me some leeway for the installation of a manifold to take the 32mm drainage pipes from the sink, the bath and so forth. Now in terms of the cleared height of that chiseled in wall, as I said, the centre of the outlet from the finished floor for the toilet would be 18 centimetres, but you can see here that I've actually taken it up to, there's 50 centimetres there. At the top of the soil stack I intend to put a 110 to 32mm cap and run 32mm up into the full ceiling to become the basis of a vent stack, so I can actually vent all of the plumbing utilities. The bath, the sink, the washing machine and the kitchen will all have vents on them that will run up into and join this one in the full ceiling and run out to the outside. After all, I have to put an extractor fan in and I have to do venting for that, so I might as well run a 32mm PVC pipe for venting all of the sewage, the waste outlets, to the back of the house above the flat roof. Now I keep finding out these engineering bricks, for a while I thought they actually had a depth of 3 air spaces, but they don't. There are only 2. So here I've actually cut away half of the brick, not a third of it. So I'm loath to actually go further in, because this is, or used to be, an external wall, and I'm not really sure I want to go into that any more than I have to. This is the old, how old? Very old manhole cover for sewage that's been bricked up. Now, as I find out, these are actually only half thickness engineering bricks. I managed to puncture it a couple of times with a demolition hammer, and that you'll actually see in the next video got a lot worse because they're only half thickness. I may have to deal with that. And an original waste outlet there. So that basically, you can see there's we are finally down to a solid subfloor here, with a minimum depth from the finished floor height of about 9 centimeters, and it's very coarse cement concrete. That extends all the way to the edge, although let me just go back a fraction. Missed it. I'm looking for the wall into the studio. Let me just forward this a few frames to get more light on it. There's the step. That's where the hammer and chisel are on. This cement subfloor does exist, but there's quite a few centimetres of sand between it and the cement that goes under that tile. Now, without a doubt, because this used to be part of the old bedroom before the bathroom was extended, that actually means that the studio kitchen effectively only has a couple of centimetres of flooring before getting to sand. And that might make it as interesting when considering renovating the studio kitchen next door to this bathroom. Anyway, be that as it may, that's what we have for the wall, and then we have another video which I'll run into now about the new doorway. Okay, so this continues into the new doorway, so let's just pause it there. So you can see that to allow for the pocket door, I've actually removed maybe about 1500 mil of the wall. I've left an average of about 13 centimetres between this edge and the back wall of the kitchen here. That edge, I had to do all this by hand because the power tools create an ocean of dust. So I did all this by hand, and the state of the brickwork on this edge here was bloody awful. Here it's a bit better, so you can see I've managed to get a cleaner cut most of it. Apart from here, and that's where I started off on the other side to establish the line that I can then chisel out from both sides rather than one side, so it would fracture like that. So that's done. I've also cleared out a little bit of space here, because this is actually where the door will go, and the rest is for the pocket. So I have to think about the interface between the bathroom tiling and the hall tiling here. So I may have to run an angle grinder along there to create a line against which to butt the bathroom tiling up to. The rest of it doesn't matter because it's going to be underneath the sliding door. And in fact, because this wall here will have a metal profile there with dry warning against it, it doesn't matter about that one either. All of that will be covered. So having a look in here, you can see that the lintel is in place, and I've just used construction foam for the time being to ensure it's in place. It's about 2 centimetres higher than it needs to be, maybe a little bit more, but I'm going to have to use structural cement to actually tidy up this edge here and run it into the lintel, and that will enable me to put 2 jambs in here as well down to the floor level to actually provide additional support for that lintel. Underneath the lintel, sorry, I'll put a header as well, so that there'll be additional support for that. But I can't really do it before I think before I've established the floor level here and put the new subfloor in. So that piece of work is going to have to wait on the schedule. There you can see this wall is really chewed out. This is where pipes were going in. Pipes were going in for the heating, the light switch and that. There was no consistent 50% brick overlay. The cement is really inconsistent, and of course they'd cemented and they'd used some bloody long nails as well to put in the original door frame. So taking it out neatly, as on the other side, just proved to be pretty much impossible, and that's what we're left with. This one is about the only neat cut on the stack. Okay, so here I've gone down a bit. This area won't be tiled, so this will just have a finished screed up to it. I don't care about the screed abutting the old cement layer there, but I am going to have to use the vapor barrier up to that point I'm not going to use foam expansion here because there's just so much sand. And here, in fact, just go back a fraction. I just noticed this when I took it up. This is that corroded pipe, and it looks like there's a T here. And bearing in mind that's hot water, I don't know where that would disappear off to there, even looking at the old plans of the house, but that indicates that this may have been a hot water for the original bathroom. Yeah, a long time ago. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was iron, and if it did have a fracture. But that leak only occurred as a result of me hammering the surrounding cement and causing a micro fracture. But it's not leaking now, and all of that hot water supply is going to be removed as soon as the first fix on the plumbing is done. So I'm not concerned about that, especially if it's underneath the vapor barrier. Now underneath it, this is where you can see we've got a biscuit here of tile adhesive and cement, which is peanuts, and then underneath all that there's the sand padding down to the concrete base. So this area will be tiled, there'll be a tile interface along there. So I've taken this down a bit. It won't have a thermal screed on it because it doesn't need to be heated. So it will just have a top screed layer of maybe 5mm underneath the tiling. So I've only taken this down several centimeters here. That should enable me. I'm going to have to clean up this gap like gaps on the other side as well to create a finished opening for the pocket door. So that wall finished off by hand a lot better than the other one, except on this side you'll see where. And the other thing as well, this is where I started the cut from the other side. I could then establish the line. This plaster on there is just garbage. So before I apply any structural cement to actually finish off this opening, I'm going to have to use a wire brush and get as much of that crap off as I can around the edge. Now here, this is the old manhole cover. You can see in a couple of places I managed to accidentally break through, which is when I found out that these are only half-width engineering bricks. I'm going to have to be careful with that one. It's dry, it doesn't smell, so the whole thing has been sealed, I guess, but I will bury that. I don't think I need to, unless I'm really pushed for height, I don't think I need to do anything with this one other than the XPS foam that I'm going to put down, probably 2 centimeters, and then the vapor barrier, the thermal vapor barrier before the new slab. So that finishes that one. I think that's pretty much the end of the preparatory work. As I said, I'm going to have to leave that lintel hanging until such time as I've got a finished floor level here and here, or at least on this side. That one will be 16mm down at some stage to allow for the tiling from the bathroom to create the interface under the door. But when I've got the finished depth here and around the other borders, not only can I deal with cementing all this and actually creating a decent door opening with wood against that cement, I can actually then also deal with the soil stack by converting it into a vertical soil stack. So that's the next thing to get on with.